Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You are listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Nasser Mashni, Robert Martin and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi. Thank you all for tuning in to another edition of Australia's only program that is totally dedicated to the Palestinian cause in English language. I would like to welcome our listeners on the AM dial or those who will join us later on 3cr.org.au/podcasts. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about Netanyahu's visit to Australia and to refute some of many of, in fact, if not all of the points he raised in the press conference with Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. For this and more, stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Today I thought would be a good opportunity to have a listen to Benjamin Netanyahu's press conference with Malcolm Turnbull, but also to address some of the statements, because what he is saying is absolute lies, but nobody in the media gets to actually rebuke them.
What kind of state will it be that they're advocating? A state that calls for Israel's destruction? A state whose territory will be used immediately for radical Islam?
The state the Palestinians would be advocating per the PLO Charter is a democratic, secular state with separation of church and state, like a normal Western democracy.
And we have to also say that never in the representation, whether in media or curriculum or in press conferences of the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, or even Hamas, that they say that we are calling for the annihilation of the Jewish people. It has never happened except in the mind of Netanyahu. And even before radical Islam became a phenomenon, Netanyahu opposed a Palestinian state for ideological reasons.
Ideological? I mean, we've got to remember that the Likud Charter explicitly says, his ruling party, he's the leader of the Likud Party, the Likud Party Charter explicitly says that there will be no Palestinian state created to the west of the Jordan River, which is the West Bank. I mean, it just beggars belief that he says what sort of Palestinian state when his own charter says explicitly there's no such thing.
So how does the media get away with just giving the airtime for this simple statement that he continually says all over the world because it's working? What are we supposed to do about that? I mean, how can we get
I think it's important, Robert, for us to keep reminding our listeners of even if the answer is clear and if it goes without saying, because they keep repeating the lie. And they get more
it's word for word
coverage.
Well, I mean, look, the reality is they keep repeating the lie. And they repeated the lie about South Africa. They repeated the lie about Jim Crow and the South in America. The reality is that the average Australian knows that settlements are an obstacle. You cannot negotiate over a piece of dirt while still building homes there on a state that's supposed to be somebody else's. Occupation is violence. People understand when you occupy people's homes for 50 years that in fact, A, that's not right, and B, if you start building houses there and want to negotiate over that piece that you're building, it's not right. Now, this is
they don't have a right to negotiate.
Well, it's borne out, and you have a look at the the people in support of the Labor Party's recognition of a state of Palestine. Yeah, so Australia, the Labor Party in the first instance, joining 137 other countries in recognising the state of Palestine. Bob Hawke, who was a Zionist to the core. And I remember in the 70s when he was still head of the ACTU, seeing pictures of him in a yarmulke. This is before Google and stuff, at the Wailing Wall and crying at the Holocaust Museum. And he's got a right to, and the Holocaust is terrible. It was a terrible situation. From him to Kevin Rudd, to Bob Carr, to Gareth Evans, these are lifelong Israel firsters. Bob Hawke said in the 70s, in the ACTU, when 73, he said, let's nuke Cairo on behalf of Israel.
Pardon? Just say that again?
Let's nuke Cairo. He wanted America to drop nuclear weapons on Cairo, the birthplace of civilization, the pyramids, all of that, because of the 73 war. That guy, now 43 years later, is going, this nutjob Netanyahu, we've got to recognise the state of Palestine. And we've got to remember that these guys are calling for the recognition of Palestine not because they care about Palestinians, but because they're trying to protect Jewish Israel.
From itself.
From itself.
But nevertheless, I think for that this position of the Labour, if it represents the Labour position, it doesn't yet, I think it is progressive, and we're going to have to build on it and to think positive. And we're going to take the next comment of Netanyahu.
Well, Yusuf, I think just quickly, just as a comment to that, and Rob spoke to the lie that Netanyahu gets airtime to and keeps repeating. The people are waking up. Now, the Labor Party is, like any party, gets led from the ground up. It isn't Bill Shorten and his far-right faction, right. Mark Dreyfus, right. Michael Danby, these hardcore Zionist, Israeli, Jewish Australians last who want to change the Labor. It's the unions. It's the members of the party who are paying their $90 a year or whatever it is to join the party that are saying, it's wrong, you're my voice, this is how I want you to vote. It's a ground up,
and
not top down.
And it is also to give credit to the relentless efforts of MPs like Maria Van Vakino and other voices of Palestine within the Labour and the Australian Parliament.
Okay, let's address the next lie.
Israel retreated already from Gaza, took out all the settlements there, gave the territory to the Palestinian Authority, and this became a terrorist state of Hamas, backed by Iran. They fired thousands and thousands of missiles against us.
I guess when Netanyahu says that Israel retreated from Gaza, it gives the impression to people who don't know what happened in the last 10 or 11 years that they pulled out and they let the Gaza people, they left them alone. And he wants us to forget that Gaza is under siege and has been for 9 years now.
But he's left them alone.
And also he wants us to forget and to dismiss the fact that Israel, in the same period that he's talking about, launched 3 offensive military operations against Gaza. Every time, at least, there were 1,000 Palestinian plus were killed. I mean, even
over 2,500 in the last
one, 2,500.
And it's important. I mean, in the first instance, this concept of retreating from Gaza. Number one, Mahmoud Abbas said, help me build credibility in Gaza. I don't have a presence there. Let me coordinate the evacuation so as to build up my prestige, build up PA prestige within Gaza. No, we're not going to let you do that. Number two, we're going to pull all the settlers out and we're going to not leave any of the infrastructure that they had there. Number three, the election Hamas wins, we're going to air, sea, landlock it. 2 million people, over 1 million of them under 18 years of age, landlocked. Dove Weinglass said we're going to put the Gazans on a diet. The calorific intake per human is calculated and only that much food is allowed into Gaza. During that same 10 years, Yusuf, as you mentioned, we've had 3 military incursions. The rockets that the Palestinians sent out of Gaza are an expression of frustration. They're an occupied people under siege, medieval siege. I mean, when you think about what a siege is from the concept of a castle and whether you're a crusader or the Islamic forces, you surround the castle, you stop the water, you starve the people till they surrender. That's what a siege is. Now, in an exasperated attempt and it's futile. These homemade rockets are futile.
I also wanted to say that when he says thousands and thousands of rockets, it gives the impression that they killed thousands and thousands of people. When in fact, while we disagree with this way, I mean, I don't necessarily think that rocket launching from Gaza is the right way of resistance these days. No. While I don't agree with that, I have to say that this, like you said, Nasser, this is a futile way of resistance if you want to calculate the casualties, because there
are zero effect. But what they do is let the Israelis know, A, we are here, we are not defeated, we are not going away, and do not rest. Do not rest. And this is the right of a Palestinian to resist. And then you go back and we say, okay, we're under that siege. 3 times in that 10 years, one of either the 5th or 6th biggest military power in the world, nuclear armed, nuclear submarines, ships, tanks, helicopters, F-16s. They bombard this population.
And they bombard the most populated area on Earth. It's not just
the most densely populated population on Earth, And they bombard it for something of the order of 45 to 60 days, and leaving thousands of people dead, but tens of thousands of people injured, and thousands of homes unlivable, irreparable.
And also we have to remind the listeners that Netanyahu himself was against the withdrawal of when Ariel Sharon took that. Ariel Sharon had to form another political party
the
Kadima Party. Why? Because Likud party, Sharon's party, did not approve the withdrawal from Gaza. So for him to make us think that he was for that, and as today's Prime Minister of Israel, that's another lie.
It was just a tactic as well to drag out the peace process. It wasn't to help.
And they took these settlers and they didn't put them into Israel proper, inverted commas, green line Israel. They put them in the West Bank.
Yeah, in terms of settlers,
they moved them
and gave them money. Sorry, we had to move you out of Gaza. Here you go. Go to the West Bank. Here's some extra cash. Don't worry.
And the whole world. The withdrawal of settlers from Gaza enjoyed so much coverage in terms of how hard it was for these, innocent
torn from their homes,
their homes, and we
must feel sympathy for these people. Look what they've had to endure.
So that is another lie that Netanyahu got to say on our mainstream media. Let's continue.
What kind of state would they be talking about? Well, first of all, it'll have to recognize the Jewish state.
So the Palestinians must recognize Israel as a Jewish state. We've heard this from this man unprecedentedly for the last 7 or 8 years.
I mean, it's crazy. Yeah? So, the Palestinians, the PLO, recognized the state of Israel in 1993 in Oslo, 24 years of negotiations. The absurdity of demanding of an occupied people to recognize the Jewish state, or as a homeland for Jews, to prejudice 1 in 4 people who are citizens of this state of Israel, to the thought that those people would now de facto, even though they are currently second-class citizens, but immediately become absolutely second-class citizens, over and above prejudicing the rights, the inalienable right of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes. This is just an unacceptable ask.
And also, like Mahmoud Abbas said, this means that we will concede the historical loss of Palestine. We will say they were right in 48. This is a Jewish state, and what we did resisting that in 47 and 48 was wrong. Yeah. And we're not going to do that.
No. And if I want to visit my grandfather's grave, he's buried as a Muslim in Palestine. It wasn't a Jewish state when he died.
And we have to ensure that Israel has the overriding security control of all the territories. Other than that, I want the Palestinians to be able to govern themselves and to have all the freedoms to do so.
So again, Netanyahu is playing the security card, and the solution, according to him, is to keep the borders between the future Palestinian state with Jordan and other borders, because he said all the borders, under Israeli control.
Well, it doesn't sound like much of an independent state to me. So within this mythological state that he has, Israel has control of all of the borders. So if you're a Palestinian, you're inside the pool, but you can't get out of the pool. So he's the lifeguard to the pool. Within the pool, he controls the water. The money that we use is the Israeli shekel. The telephone, radio spectrum is his. All the resources, whether it be electricity, etc., is all controlled by the Israelis coming in and out. Now, that doesn't sound like an independent state to me. That sounds like a South African Bantustan. And we know what the apartheid era, F.W. de Klerk, all those guys thought about the black South Africans and what they tried to do to them in those Bantustans.
And also to continue to raise the security concerns of Israel, what is it to us? What about our own security concerns? Who's going to meet them? Because we are very deeply concerned, by the way.
We're deeply concerned because
left unchecked, we have a very bad neighbor, and that neighbor for 70 years has demonstrated that they are bully, they are terrorist, I think they have ticked all the boxes.
They want to take your country as well.
They want to take my country, and they want to erase the history. They steal the land, kill people,
steal our
culture,
steal our music, steal our food.
So within that, we are really concerned.
Yeah.
And who's going to meet our concerns?
Absolutely.
You're listening to Palestine Remembered on 855 AM, and the song we're going to listen to is Ya Nabad al-Daffa by Ahmed Qa'bour. The song actually is 35 years old, and it was during the invasion of South Lebanon, the Israeli invasion, and I remember that this has become like another anthem of old Palestinians in early 80s, late 70s. So we're going to be listening to The Pulse of West Bank, Ya Nabad al-Daffa by Ahmed Qa'bour. Welcome back, our listeners. You're listening to Palestine Remembered on 855 AM and on 3cr.org.au/podcasts. The song Lina Kanat Tifla, the last part of the song, was in memory of Lina Al-Nabilsi, a Palestinian school girl who was shot dead by Israeli soldiers in Nablus, West Bank, and became an icon of the Palestinian resistance in late 70s and early 80s. In fact, there is a famous portrait of Lina Nabilsi in most Palestinian homes. We will continue with our reflections on Netanyahu's visit, and I would ask if his visit to Australia was a good occasion for our Prime Minister to discuss the unfinished Australia-Israel topics, like the fake or forged Australian passports or the Ben Ziegler file.
I'm sure our listeners will remember, Yusuf, in 2010, a Palestinian Hamas member, co-founder of Izzaldin al-Qassam Brigades.
Mahmoud al-Mabhouh.
Yeah, he was assassinated in Dubai. And at the time, originally they thought he'd died of a heart attack, but then they did some investigations and found something of the order of 20 to 30 Israeli agents had flown in from all over the world into Dubai.
Only after the CCTV cameras.
Yeah, correct. After the investigation. Some 10 days later, all of the truth came out. And disturbingly, the integrity of the Australian passport system was destroyed because the Shin Bet, the Israeli Secret Service, and they had sent Israeli operatives, 4 of them with forged Australian passports. And at the time, Kevin Rudd and our Foreign Minister Stephen Smith, we expelled a military attaché to the Israeli embassy. But there's no question to this guy in the press conferences as to he presided over that assassination. It was his call to send a death troop in to kill this Palestinian. There's no question as to how could you do that? How could you?
This issue seemed to have gone missing shortly after the
immediately after, and not long after that. Kevin Rudd lost stewardship of the Labor Party and necessarily the Prime Minister of Australia, and that was the end. And then in the same year. We have an Australian, and look, I'm certainly no fan of this guy, Ben Ziegler, who comes from a very prominent Zionist Melbourne Jewish family. He was a member of the IDF and in the Shin Bet, and He was various different stories, but the one I like best, because nobody actually knows the truth, is that he was he decided to go undercover himself and thought that he'd actually fooled some Hezbollah agents, and he was getting valuable information from Hezbollah about Iran, and he was going to feed it to his bosses and get a promotion. When in fact the Hezbollah people were actually pumping him for information, and he didn't realise he was a double agent. And when it was found out, he was arrested. He was then imprisoned in the prison cell that was specifically designed and made for the assassin of Shimon Peres, of Yitzhak Rabin. And this is
Yigal Amir.
Yeah, Yigal Amir. This is a suicide-proof cell with one door, 24-hour videotape. I mean, it's exactly like the movies say.
But nevertheless,
somehow, when somebody went for a cup of coffee, he hung himself. Now, the Israeli government paid the Zeiger family some $1 million Australian over 4 years and never admitted their responsibility in the death. But again, even though I'm not, I don't have any sympathy for this guy, he's an Australian citizen. Happened under Netanyahu's watch, and no question.
And you would think that topics like this would be discussed during the visit of Netanyahu to Australia, but it doesn't sound like it.
No, he just gets a free ride. I mean, the fact that this war criminal can come into this country and be feted like he's, the Queen. I mean, it's just crazy. The security, 500 security people to protect this guy. I mean,
look how
much
much
we have shared values now with
We've got no shared values. I mean, the shared values are of colonialism, of oppression of the indigenous people, of denying the attachment of the indigenous people to their land, of stealing their culture, of stealing their resources. That's the shared value between Australia and Israel.
But these values are shared between the governments, not shared by the people of
No,
Australia.
of course not.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
I don't think Turnbull can speak on behalf of all Australians who, when it comes to shared values with Israel.
Well, in fact, he's not. He's not. There was that the survey not long ago.
I want to touch on the protest last Sunday that took place, that started a series of other protests in Sydney and elsewhere against the visit of Netanyahu. Nasser and Robert, you guys were there, and you have done a magnificent work in putting together, you and other, of course, we have to give credit to everybody who helped put it together. But tell me about that event, Robert.
It was interesting. I mean, I'm actually a little bit disappointed with the amount of people that came, but it was good to see. When you speak to people around there's a lot of people that obviously don't like Benjamin Netanyahu and say that we don't have shared values. And it was good to see, and I think the speeches were good.
I think what really ignited, and we've got to remember that aside from the protests in Melbourne, there was one in Canberra, one in Sydney, one in Brisbane. There was prayer vigils. Some close to 1,000 Australian Jews signed a petition saying, "Not in our name, don't come here."
And also the other list of prominent
60 names.
So if you go to the apan.org.au website, you can see the statement there from APAN that we had over 60 prominent Australian signatories. And just to give you an idea, Gavin Griffith QC, former Solicitor General of Australia, the Honourable Murray Rutledge Wilcox, Order of Australia, Queen's Counsel, former Federal Court Judge, Julian Burnside, Australia, Order of Australia, Queen's Counsel, John Carker, QC, Queen's Counsel, Paul Hayward-Smith, Queen's Counsel, Claire O'Connor, Special Counsel, Janet Holmes, a Court, Australian Cross,
Wow.
John Stanthorpe, ACT Chief Minister. I mean, the list of people who signed this are luminaries. They're the leaders of Australia. And many obviously didn't sign, and there was some of the language. We had some people that we approached and asked them to sign. They said, look, if we tone it down, and we weren't going to tone the statement down because this man should not be invited to our country.
Can you give us an outline of what the statement was, just in brief?
Just very quick. Perhaps just the last paragraph. Says the Australian government needs to rethink its one-sided support for the Israeli government. We are appalled that our government opposes the recent UN Security Council resolution supporting the application of international law to Israel and Palestine, when most nations, including the United Kingdom, Germany, France and New Zealand, support it. Even the USA did not oppose it. It is time for the suffering of the Palestinian people to stop and for Australia to take a more balanced role in supporting the application of international law and not supporting Mr. Netanyahu and his policies.
And also there was a strong statement from the Islamic Council of Victoria, ICV.
Yeah, the ICV sent out a very strong statement also.
I would like to really thank them for that. So we're seeing a shift not only from the mainstream Australia when it comes to the Palestinian issue, but also from within our community. We have become more organized. We have started to talk to each other,
and you and I were talking about
more
APAN.
Influential.
You and I were talking about APAN on the way in here, say that they should be commended for the work that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I think it's very important. One thing I liked about the protests is that they also attracted media attention from Australia and even from New York Times.
The article ended up in the New York Times. I mean, so that's the caliber of signatories to that statement. Elicit that support. Now, you can't get those people signing that sort of statement. You're not going to get Bob Hawke, Carr, Gavin Griffith signing our statement.
They're not going to put their names.
Well, they're not going to put their names to it, but they'll come out and they wrote those op-eds, yeah. And for Bob Carr and Bob Hawke and Gareth Evans to come out as strongly as, and these are lifelong Zionists.
We're going to have to.
It's a testament to it.
Absolutely, we're going to have to leave it here. Bottom line is Netanyahu is a war criminal.
Yep.
In fact, he's worse than a war criminal. All his crimes were during what he called peacetime.
Yep.
Netanyahu is the head of a terrorist state that's called Israel. It's a rogue state, and it's a threat to stability of the international security, not just the Middle East security. Netanyahu is a racist against Arabs, against Muslims, against anyone who opposes a Palestinian state. Netanyahu should not be welcomed in Australia. Netanyahu should not be given the red carpet. And
he belongs in The Hague as an international war criminal and should serve out the rest of his life behind bars.
Absolutely, and we'll leave it here. And I would like to thank all my listeners, all our listeners, for being with us for another edition of Palestine Remembered. And we're going to meet next Saturday, same time, 9:30 in the morning. Thank you, Nasser and Robert.
Thanks.
Have a good weekend.